Mr. Jeremy Fowler, ESPN.
What's up, buddy? What's going on?
Hey, guys.
Standing out.
Happy draft season.
Yeah, happy draft day, man. It's the best day of the year, in my opinion. I guess as Jet fans, Super Bowl day is really never something we look forward to. So the draft is our Super Bowl. So, happy draft day.
No doubt. Should be fun. Should be a fun night.
Jeremy, how are you feeling right now? What are you hearing on the trade front? Is there anything very interesting? I know that you tweeted out something about, 5 or 10 minutes ago about 3's open, 4's open, 5 could be open. What are you feeling? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I was hearing that a lot of those teams are looking to trade back, and I checked with all of them, and most of them are at least open to it. Now, certain teams have more of a threshold to want to get out than others. Like, the Titans, I think, are willing to listen, but are not overly aggressive at having to get out. I'd put the Jets in that category too, probably. Like, would they love to move back a few spots? If they feel like they can get one of their top 2 or 3 guys still, yes, but they're not dead set on having to do that. Whereas I would say the Chargers might be the most eager to get out. When I checked with somebody there, I said, are you guys still open for business? And they said, we're 7-Eleven open. So, whether Minnesota can get to 3 or 5 seems relevant. Whether the Giants can get from 6 to 3 or 5 seems relevant in relation to a Drake May.
What quickly, just on the Charger point, Jeremy, like if they're not able to move back, and I mean, it seems like there should be enough interest to do it if the deal is right. What's with this? Like, I felt like all of a sudden J.C. Latham has overnight last night has gone from somebody who was projected to be maybe the 2nd or 3rd tackle to like the consensus number 1 tackle. Is that you're hearing similar?
Well, you're hearing some of that, and I still want to see for sure. But I was starting to hear last week that they were certainly open to taking an offensive lineman, preferably a tackle. Somebody they can put at right tackle because they have Rashawn Slater who can play left. And so really that depends on preference. Joe Alt was probably the sexiest name around for the last couple months. But, as most scouts would tell you, people seem to sober up around the last few days of the draft and the true colors come out, So I don't know if Latham is like the top offensive tackle on everybody's board, but, he's highly regarded and he seems to fit what the Chargers would want to do. So we still have to see it to believe it. I mean, they're going to have one of these top receivers staring them at the face at number 5 when they're on the clock. So that could still be tempting for them. But, you can move back to like, I don't know. I don't know where they can move back to is the problem. Let's say it's Minnesota at 11. You can still get a good tackle there and possibly, probably not one of the top 3 receivers, but, if you want to get line help, you can still get it.
Jeremy, quick question. Do you think that offensive line specifically is where a lot of these teams in the top 10 are looking, and then because the wide receiver class is so deep, they may think to themselves, we could probably get someone in the 2nd round or even, in the 3rd at some point. Yeah. Do you think that there's going to be a runoff, let's say even in the top 15, or what do you think, 4 to 5 offensive linemen will go in the top 15?
It's very possible. I think at least 3 in the top 10, if you're looking at Chargers, depending on where they stay put, Titans, and possibly Jets. And then, you have a team like Philly, word is they want to move up, and I believe that's for an offensive tackle at this point. I don't know for sure, but they got Lane Johnson getting older. That's their MO to get offensive line help. They have a high grade on a lot of those tackles. So, do they want to get to 12 or 14 or maybe even like 16 to Seattle, and you can still get a good one? So I think at least 5. You're checking with GMs. I would say, they predicted at least 5 of the top 19 picks will be a tackle, possibly 6.
Yeah, I mean, the tackle in the receiver class this year, it's like you're looking in the 3rd round at guys who last year might have been like the 2nd or 3rd wide receiver drafted. So like it's, I'm sure there's a lot of teams, and not just our team here who we root for. The receiver tackle, it's like, where do you go first? It's like, where is that value, like that sweet spot in second, day 2. So it's going to be interesting to see which run you see deeper tonight.
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of good receivers in the 2nd round for sure. So there's going to be a sentiment there. If you're in New England, you can take your quarterback shot early, and then you're thinking at 34, or maybe like if you try to move into the late 1st, there's going to be your guy there. There could be 7 receivers in the 1st and 7 tackles in the 1st. That's like more than 40% of the draft. Yeah. I don't know if we'll hit that number at receiver, but we could. So it depends on really what Buffalo does, Kansas City, some of those teams.
Yeah, Jeremy, first thing I wanted to bring up was when we spoke in Indy, we said if Zach Wilson was going to the Rams, we're getting you that blue and gold Zach Wilson jersey. So I was disappointed to see he went to Denver.
Yeah.
I don't think you want that New Jersey anyway.
I know. I thought Rams or 49ers just because I think he would have wanted to go there, but they just didn't really have the need that Denver did, and it didn't cost Denver really anything at all. So I think at the combine, I really wasn't thinking in terms of Denver at that point. But it sounds like for the last 3 weeks they've been working on this deal, so they were the clear favorite.
Yeah, the name question I wanted to ask you though is give us a name that you think is going to go late in the first round that maybe most mocks didn't have going. Like we've heard a lot about offensive tackles being late first rounders, so teams could get that 5th-year option. Do you see any names that you think could go sneaking into that back half of the first round?
You're talking about tackles or just surprise names?
Tackles or players in general.
Amarius Mims is a name that teams are kind of kicking around. Like he's a first-round talent, but he hasn't played a lot at Georgia. So does he sneak in there? That's a name that comes to mind. I mean, he might even go top 20. I think it's possible. Sorry, I just got a text.
Anything worth it?
I don't know yet. Kind of.
What if it was his DoorDash? Let the guy live, Nick. Oh my god.
No.
He's probably getting food to his house. I mean, let the guy look. He's got a nice house. It's
more just trying to find out what's going on with New England.
Yeah.
I thought they're going to stay put and take the quarterback unless they're just absolutely floored by an offer, and I don't think that's come yet. But that won't come until you're on the clock, probably for sure. They'll take it to the clock and see what happens. But I still think Drake May will be their guy. But that's what I'm checking on right now. But I think Amarius Mims is a name. Darius Robinson, the big kind of 3-4 DE inside outside guy, could get into the late first. He's at the draft, so he must feel pretty good about that.
What do you think?
McConkey could sneak in a Georgia receiver. So
love McConkey. One of my favorite guys in this draft. What do you think about the veteran market? Because obviously we saw yesterday with Hendrickson and T. Higgins requesting trades. Then you have the Brandon Ayuk situation everybody's watching tonight.
Yeah.
Do you see any bigger name veterans get traded this weekend?
Well, certainly possible. I mean, Denver's kind of a team to watch just because they've been kind of open for business a little bit. Although, to a point. They're getting calls on Courtland Sutton, but I don't think they want to trade him. They've been pretty clear on that. But Patrick Surtain, do they move on him just to try to get more draft picks? I don't think they do. I'm just the vibe there in Denver is they feel like the roster's not there and they got to catch up in a hurry. So do they just try to accumulate more picks? So that's a team I'm kind of watching. San Fran's a team I'm watching where, I would say checking with teams today, most think that they'll end up working something out with Ayuk, that they'll try to prioritize him. But that might be contingent upon whether they can trade Deebo Samuel, because I just don't know if you can keep both under contract at that number. Brandon Ayuk's going to be a $30 million guy now. So, I've checked with teams that are kind of looking for a receiver in the draft. Jacksonville would be one. I just don't know if they're willing to pay what it would take. I think Washington's interested in Ayuk. Jaden Daniels, he's got a connection with Ayuk from their ASU days. So that's what I'm kind of loosely watching. And the Adam Peters connection, obviously the GM was there in San Fran. So certainly some possibilities, but I don't know that an Ayuk deal would come together tonight. I think it might be more later in the draft, but we'll see. Maybe San Fran can pull something off because it's clear they want to get some high impact rookies and pick them 31st. They'd like to move up if they could. I just don't know if they can pull it off.
And Washington has a ton of picks. They have 2 2s, I think 2 or 3 3s. So, a package to put together there would be
They
easy.
can do that for sure.
Jeremy, we have a fan question for you. Ben, I believe it's a Bills fan. I'm not completely sure. But he asks, Bills moving up for a wide receiver. Do you think they could potentially move up in the top 12?
So what's funny about that is, and I tried to write a little bit about this without, because do I think they're going to move up for Rome Odunze? No, because it'd be a huge jump. But I know that they love him and know what it would take to move up. So, it's just that sort of speaks on the legwork they've done at the position. So would it surprise me if they, got up to get their guy? No, it really wouldn't. But the problem is you got the top 3, and then you got that gap. Those top 3 are considered really the top tier. So, at that point, do you just wait it out a little bit? Most teams I talk to think Xavier Worthy could be the 4th receiver off the board.
Wow.
Maybe Brian Thomas. I would say it's split, but, a slight lean to Worthy because of the speed. So, since teams are sort of torn on that 4th option, do you need to trade up for that kind of guy? I don't know, unless they love somebody, but they've done a lot of work. I mean, they've kind of scoured the earth for a wide receiver. So it would not surprise me at all if they did make some sort of move. It just might be minor.
Last question, Jeremy. Let's talk about, we mentioned Washington. They have a plethora of picks. Could you see a team like that, like Washington, or a different team trying to make their 1st round pick and then trade back into the 1st? Like with Washington, obviously you could get Daniels and then go grab one of those tackles to protect him. If not Washington, do you see any other teams that could be in the mix for trading back into the 1st round?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, Washington's a good one. Maybe they get a tackle late 1st. New England to get a receiver. Let's see, who else? Trying to think, where's Baltimore pick? What are they, 30th now? They would need to trade back in. Who else would trade back in? I'm trying to. Let me look from the top. So
Carolina, they have
yeah,
2s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they got the 2-2s. They could package that.
And Houston, wasn't Houston rumored to be a team looking to get back into the 1st after trading out?
I think so. Nick Casario has shown a willingness to do that. We saw it with his trade for Will Anderson last year. So that's one that comes to mind. But Washington, New England for sure come to mind there. I think a team look, we're on the board here, the precipice having 6 quarterbacks in the 1st. Teams are sort of believing that's real. And that'd be the first time since 1983. So if you're trying to get back in, let's say Bo Nix is there late 1 and you like him. Do you get back in? I could see a world where, Denver moves back from its 12th spot to try to get picks, make their pick at 18 or wherever they are, or 20, and then try to come back in with what they got.
Because they don't have
either, right? I could see that.
Denver's 2nd round went to New Orleans for Peyton this year, right?
Yeah, they don't have a 2nd rounder, but that's what I'm saying. They would have to get picks in a trade back.
Makes sense.
And then use it to get up. Now, I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying they do like Nix as a fit if they don't go quarterback at 12, which I kind of increasingly don't think they'll do. Then I could see them making that move.
All right, last fan question. They ask me these questions all the time. I never have right answers, though. That's why we have you on, Jeremy, because no one really takes what I say seriously most of the time. But Jeremy, fire guy Tony Brock. Any word on a name with the chance to sneak into the top 10 that hasn't been talked about? You kind of touched on it earlier a little bit, but anything there?
I would go. I think Byron Murphy could sneak in there. The Texas defensive tackle, Atlanta at 8. I've heard a little connection there. Minnesota at 11. He's in that range at least. Let's see. Some of the tackles wouldn't be surprising, I wouldn't say. So I don't think the corners will sneak into 10. So I would say Byron Murphy's a name that comes to mind. Look, Michael Penix is pretty confident that he's going somewhere, mid 1st or top half of 1st. I checked with the GM today on that, and they said 2 weeks ago I would have said no. Right now I'm kind of thinking yes. So it's who is it, right? Is it somebody in the top 10? I don't necessarily think so. I know Atlanta did a lot of work on him. Do I think they want to go quarterback at 8 after giving Kirk Cousins $180 million? Probably not. But there's a sentiment for him a little bit, and we know these guys get pushed up. So he's he's sort of like a fringe top 10 maybe, but you could throw his name in there. But I would say Byron Murphy.
Nice. Last thing I wanted to ask, and then we'll let you go, Jeremy. I really appreciate it. How do you feel about mock drafts in general? I know we've been going through them now for months, and we have Peter Schrager as a mock draft, and Nick likes he likes Schrager. Actually, I like Jeremiah's, and Jason likes some random blog on the internet that nobody ever heard of. So, I mean, what do you think about mock drafts in general? Do you actually think that Peter Schrager, for example, actually has that legit in with the Jets, where saying that they would take Brock Bowers, or today actually, or yesterday, they said that they're going to pass up on Joe Alt, for example? I mean, how much do you think these insiders do they have those real relationships with teams that?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think Schrager does for sure. Daniel Jeremiah does for sure. our guys here from Mel Kiper to Matt Miller and Jordan Reed, those guys all work really hard. It's the draft's too much of an inexact science to just be able to not make any phone calls and just throw stuff at the wall, So I respect what those guys do a lot. I like mock drafts because I think it gives you a new perspective, if you're trying to track, like teams look at it, teams like them, teams look at them and they kind of even get information off them a little bit, or at least ideas, like at the end of the draft, like this week, yesterday and today, things crystallize a little more. But I like looking at those and sometimes I get new ideas, like I think it might've been Peter Schrager had Bo Nix as the Vikings' second first-round pick, what would be the 23rd pick. Like that piqued my interest. I'm like, okay, that is kind of interesting. And I came to find out that the Vikings like a lot of these quarterbacks. I think Drake May is the guy they would like to trade up for, but they like a lot of them, and Nix is included, So it's like, is your play? And I was able to check with the team. They're like, yeah, I could see them taking a defensive player at 11 and a quarterback at 23. Like, you don't have to make a trade unless you just love a guy. So, like, that stuff for me is valuable. I like the mock drafts. It keeps you guessing.
Before you go, Jeremy, who are the Jets taking at 10?
Yeah, I was about to say, man, it's like
we have to. It's got to be the final.
Last time I was on with these, it was all
last question. Really the last one. And then
I thought the Jets question was coming earlier. So I would say I asked around on this today. My educated guess, don't hold me to this. My educated guess is it's either Bowers or the Penn State tackle.
Fashanu, that's interesting.
Fashanu, yeah.
We'll get into this a lot once Jeremy heads out, but
yeah, that's my guess right now. Look, the owner likes pass catchers, right? So, like, if Adunze's there or Bowers is there, like, that could get interesting. And I do think Bowers will be there at 10. We'll see. I don't know. I hear mixed views on that. Like, some teams say he's the best player in the draft. Others say he's going to fall to 15 because basically, like, solely on need, right? Like, if you just don't need a tight end.
Right.
If it's tackle and quarterback and wide receiver and one defensive player occupying the top 10, that's 10 spots right there. So it's just a numbers game. But he's awesome, So, this is a team that's all in, right? So if they want to go with the attractive pass catching option, would not shock at all. So I think my educated guess, I think it's between those two players.
Appreciate that, Jeremy. Appreciate you always being cool with us and hopping on when we ask, and everybody out there following on and watching Draft-A-Ganza. Make sure you follow Jeremy Fowler at ESPN if you're not already. I don't know what you'd be doing if you're not, but make sure you do it if you're here and listening. And as always, Jeremy, really appreciate it. Enjoy the draft.
Awesome.
Thank you, man.
Jeremy, you're the GOAT, man. Appreciate it, man. Enjoy your night.
Okay, take care.
See you, buddy.
Better, man.
See you.